Hey there, welcome to the REI Conversion Podcast, where each episode we discuss strategies and digital tools to help you launch, automate, and scale your real estate investing business. Learn how to run your investing business remotely, find out ways to automate your business to better utilize your time, and learn what other successful investors are implementing so you can get to the next step closer to your investing goals. And I'm your host and founder of REI Conversion, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going? My name is Jesse here of the REI Conversion Podcast. I've got a great guest here today with me, and he is someone who really got started not too long ago. And why I brought him onto the show was because what he mentioned early on, how he wanted to prove the concept of land and what he did, how he sort of tested the waters to see if land was something that was even real, because we have a lot of people who might be skeptical or not sure. But I think this interview here with Mike really paints a realistic picture, some of the struggles and challenges he faced as he got started. And what's really awesome is he literally got started this past quarter of since when this show was recorded. He got started at the beginning of the year. So there's going to be a lot of fresh information, and really he's going to share with you some of the details. So I'm really excited to have him on. But before we get started, this show is brought to you by REI Conversion. We are actually rebranding to Pebble very shortly here. But if you are looking for a system to centralize, systemize, and automate your land investing business, make sure you check out Pebble. Head over to reiconversion.com and feel free to book a demo. We are working on a lot of different features. One of our newest sort of feature launches is the fact that now you don't even need to dedupe your list anymore. You can bring in a list. Let's say Susie's on that list. She's owned 5 different properties on there. Well, great. Pebble can now bring that all into one mailer, send her one offer, send her one blind offer, or send her whatever one letter, and list out all the properties you're interested in. And the power about this is now you can really incentivize that seller to know that you're interested in all her properties. You're going to be able to offer a higher number to her or him. So if you are interested in tools like these that help land investors scale, systemize, and centralize, really have a home centralized business for their land investing, whether you're getting started like Mike here, or you are looking to really scale this up with multiple people on your team, check out reiconversion.com. Book a tour with me. It is with me directly. And I'd love to show you some of the amazing things that we're helping our land investors with. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this episode here with Mike. Cheers. Hey, how's it going, everybody? I've got my special guest here, Mike. Mike, thanks so much for joining our call here. How are you doing today, Mike?
Doing great. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. And I brought Mike on today because actually me and Mike have been sort of chatting for a little while now, and I've sort of known Mike, and correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes Mike, my memory isn't the best here. I'm not going to act like I know everything, but we sort of got introduced to each other really when you sort of got started. Am I correct?
Correct. All of 4.5 months ago.
You see, I think there's a lot of podcasts that bring on a lot of people who have a lot of experiences or highlight cases. I love bringing on people who are really, some are really experienced, some are in the middle, some are just getting started. And one of the reasons I brought Mike on was something that he brought up to me, that he wanted to prove the concept of land before he started getting more and more invested in this. And that's really what I want to talk about, because I think that's really interesting. A lot of people who are getting started in land are also looking to prove the concept to themselves, to their families, to people that they're supporting, before they are actually put in more time. But before we dive into that, Mike, can you tell us a little bit about who you are before land investing? What do you do? And then also, how did you get started in land?
Sure. Happy to do that, Jesse. Well, I've got a 30-year plus career as a marketer in healthcare, no real estate background really at all. So I kind of got into this shopping for land myself, and also thinking about it as land as an investment, because I've always kind of managed my own investment portfolio. But the more I started to dig, I started seeing information pop up about land investing, RE Tipster, Pebble, and I started listening to some of the podcasts towards the end of last year. And I just because of my background and my career, I generally will start out as a skeptic and try to poke holes in it. And from everything I heard in the different podcasts that I listened to, and the different people talking about, Land Academy is another one that I listen to and continue to listen to. I feel like a kid in a candy shop with all of these
Yeah.
opportunities out there to learn. I couldn't poke a hole in it. So I thought I really got excited about this towards the end of last year, and this is 100% a side gig for me because I'm in a full
Mhm.
time job myself. I wanted to try it out, and in marketing and in my career, the way that you kind of um, check something out is you do a pilot. So that's really how I thought about it. And that's when you and I
Yeah.
first talked about it towards the end of last year. I said, I'm really doing proof of concept here. I want to do a pilot to see if it works. And I want to see what kind of holes I can poke in this land investing concept.
Yeah. I love that whole concept of the holes you can poke. When I came into real estate before land, I felt the same way. In Canada, we can't really flip the way we can in America. And so it just felt so interesting, so weird to me. And then all the people that started helping out. I started off in the Bigger Pockets forum. It just seemed like everybody's really willing to help, and I was like, there's something going off here. And I was like, feels like people are trying to sell me snake oil. So I totally get where you're coming from. You wanted to give this a run and see if things are actually true. Now when you're talking about poking holes here and really sort of again testing the waters here, what obviously you didn't sit there and be like, okay, I've got this checklist and I'm gonna like this is what I'm gonna do. But what were in your mind, like, okay, if it crosses these kind of benchmarks, yeah, this might work. What did you think of?
Well, I think the first thing that was just kind of unbelievable to me was just believing that people would sell their land to me for 15 to 40% of the retail value. So that was number one. It's like, hey, if I send these mailers out, are people
Yeah.
really going to call me back? And are they really going to be willing to sell their land to me at that price? That was probably the most unbelievable part of it to me. The back end, the selling end, all makes sense, right? I mean, once you
Mhm.
once you you have the land, I know the market's hot right now. The real estate market's hot. I know I can sell it.
Yes.
But it's
Mhm.
this whole idea of can I really acquire land at? And in some of the training that I've been through, I hear stories of people buying it at 10 to 15% of retail value. And I've had that happen with one property, but that's probably more the exception than the rule.
Yeah, yeah. So you just went out there. I didn't. I imagine it's not like you went guns blazing, but you went out there. You set out there to prove, hey, basically, can I actually acquire land at this price? So what was that process like for somebody who's just getting started? And I think this is going to hit home with a lot of people who are maybe going to explore, this whole land model. Well, what was that like? What did you do? And obviously, I'm assuming you went through some training as well. And feel free if you want to share the training. You don't have to, but what was getting started like, and what was the process looking like?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I really did go at it guns a blazing, and I know I've made some mistakes along the way.
Yeah,
I did the RE Tipster masterclass.
yeah,
So spent the second half of December of last year really diving into that because I felt like the education was important. And
yeah,
then I really just kind of identified from that training what the fundamentals were because I
yeah,
believe that I can't just go guns a blazing and do my own thing, even based on what I've heard in the different podcasts. So
yeah,
I really kind of soaked up the RE Tipster course. And
yeah,
and then come January, I really went out guns a blazing. My first mailer went out early part of last year. I'm sorry, early part of January,
sure,
um, with those fundamentals in mind. Which, by the way, was
yeah.
an absolute flop. My first mailer.
You know what's funny? I went through Seth's course over at our RE Tipster, and by the way, if you guys are interested to learn a little bit more about the course that Mike is talking about, and I took as well, you can just head over to reaconversion.com, go to resources and recommended tools. I do have Seth's land masterclass there. But I did the same thing. I kind of went guns blazing. But the thing is, the benefit about guns blazing is you're gonna learn really fast. Like you're gonna get all the mistakes like right in the door. You're gonna make probably bigger mistakes than most people are gonna make when they're taking their time because they're pretty careful. I say like just go in there, gun blaze, and make the mistakes. And really, I guess you were really trying to poke holes into this then.
Yeah, and I went into it guns a blazing in the sense that I guess I thought when I sent out my first 600 mailers, I was going to get all these calls and everything was going to happen real
Yeah.
fast. And when things didn't happen real fast,
Mm,
I sent out more mail and I sent out more mail. I ended up sending out over 10,000 mailers during the first
yeah.
quarter, so I really got the chance to both make mistakes and then experience what this is like in terms of interacting with sellers and buying properties.
Yeah. So fast forward to today. You've been doing this for a few months now. Um, what did you learn along the way? Let's talk about some of those mistakes. What were some of the common mistakes, or bigger mistakes you kind of ran into along the way?
Well, I'd say the first mistake that I made was mispricing my early mailers.
Mm,
I was really anchored on this idea that I could buy property at between 10 and 20%. So I
right.
got a lot.
Right.
I got a lot of hate calls during that
Mm,
time. I think the other mistake that I made was thinking that I could somehow handle the calls myself.
yeah.
That people would leave a message and then I would be able to return those calls. 90% of people just don't want to leave a message. So very quickly,
Yeah.
based on your advice early on,
Mhm.
engaged Pat Live to answer my calls because I'm working a regular job during the day and then I can return those after hours or on the weekends.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're
So
talking about pricing. So if you can, so I'm assuming you probably increased the pricing since what you started off with. Now you've also brought on Pat Live. Is that correct?
yes.
Wow. Okay. Right on. And it's not often that I hear somebody who's just getting started jump onto Pat Live, but obviously this works well for you, especially you've got a full time job. Now that you've got somebody sort of answering calls. In fact, we had Sean Callahan, and I've known him since when he got started, and he just pulled the same trigger not too long ago. We just talked about Pat Live, so I will leave it in the show notes if you guys want to listen to somebody and their script and how they sort of vet people through Pat Live. You can have a listen to that. That'll be in the show notes on our website here. Okay, so a couple mistakes there. You've gotten around there. Any other any other sort of bigger mistakes that you recall, or those were sort of the bigger ones?
I would say those are the bigger ones. I mean, I've had a couple where I think I mispriced, in the final offer where I mispriced my offer. And
Mm,
interestingly enough, two of the properties that I felt like I mispriced were the first two that I sold, and I sold them at a pretty good profit, which pretty much has paid for everything that I've invested to get this started. So,
right.
yeah, and so I think one of my bigger challenges has been tied to pricing, either when I make that final offer or
Yeah.
in pricing the mailers.
I want to dive into a little bit what you said earlier. Your first mailing campaign, you mentioned that you sent out a bunch of mailers and you got no response, and that can be very, very discouraging. We see that happen a lot. That's what happened. I mean, I lucked out on my first mailer, but next two were total duds. I sent out 500. I got three properties down in that one mailing, and then the next couple months was really discouraging. What went through your mind, and how did you like sort of persevere and you know and then continue to send like up to 10,000 pieces of mailing? That's again, you must have been super excited about this, but what was going through your head, and how did you pull through those kind of dry spells?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Jesse. I think because I went at it guns a blazing and I'm kind of impatient by nature, I kept telling myself, hey, I mean, I've heard so many people talk about the fundamentals, get the mail out, look at your mailers, make adjustments, So
Yeah.
even though it could be a little bit painful because I'm now spending more money
Hmm.
in marketing without feeling like I'm getting any return, I just kept pushing those out there. But I didn't just keep mailing. Again, from the training, I kept hearing you guys talk about don't just send the mail out, but make adjustments. Try to understand why it failed. And
Yeah.
going back to that first one, I was able to uncover that it was price. I also ended up changing markets. I've been in 3 different states now and kind of anchored in one state and
Oh,
one
wow.
one county for the last 2.5 months where I've had a lot of success. So I
That's
think
awesome
it's
to hear.
again, none of this is original, nothing, none of this is brand new, but just
Hmm.
learning from what I'm hearing others
Yeah.
doing and making adjustments along the way. But I'm also impatient. So I just said, hey, this one didn't go so well. My second one didn't go so well. The third one has to go well. And interestingly enough, my third mailer was a very targeted mailer, kind of like 200, it was only 200. There's only 200 offer letters in one county where I just wanted to try a specific area, and I got 3 properties from that. And the others, I'd already put out
What?
2 or 3 thousand and got nothing. So it was telling to really see if you put the thought into it and make
Yeah.
adjustments along the way, and just
Yeah.
keep the mail going out, that it works. So.
I like to be respectful of people's numbers and privacy. So feel free to not
Yeah.
want to answer. But how many properties have you taken down, acquired to this point? I mean, you just literally started at the beginning of this year, and it sounds like you're getting into some action at this point. And it's funny because once you hit that point of like success, things start building momentum on its own, and you kind of get into this weird flow. And I've had several people on the podcast talk about that before. But if you don't mind, how many properties have you knocked down at this point?
Yeah, my goal in the first quarter was to buy 3 or 4. Again, with
Yeah,
this whole proof of concept
yeah,
idea, and I was still after my first 2 or 3 mailers hoping to get 3 or 4, but then all of a sudden, the second 5,000 mailers I sent out, all of these returns started coming back, phone calls, people signing contracts and sending them back. I ended up
that's awesome to hear.
purchasing 12 properties in the first
Holy,
quarter, and I've got
oh my goodness,
2 or 3 more now that are in the works. So, which was, yeah, I never would have thought I would have bought those, and all of them.
that's incredible. So you've obviously found a pocket that is working out really well for you, which is awesome. Congrats on that. Um, Let me ask you this: where you are right now, what are and you've gotten to hear, was there sort of any surprises that you didn't hear about that kind of caught you blindsidedly, and now you're having to deal with it, or you've dealt with? Was there anything surprising along the way? I know you did mention about offers, but you kind of had a gut feeling that maybe that was a little bit low, but was there any sort of surprises along the way that you didn't expect?
That's a good question. Trying to think of what the surprises have been along the way. I
Yeah,
think um, yeah, I really, I think the pricing
that's
has
fine.
been the biggest one, right?
Biggest one. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So now that you are where you are, and obviously it sounds like you do a bit of goal setting and planning. Um, what's the? I mean, you're beyond your first quarter now. You're coming up to your half year, but what is the next goal? What does that look like? And is there a long term vision? Or are you just kind of rolling with it and enjoying the process? What is it all to you?
Like I said, I'm still feel kind of like a kid in a candy shop. I'm really enjoying the process of learning right
Yeah,
now. So I still consider this year to be a pilot year for me, but it's with how well things have gone, it's hard to say I'm in proof of concept. So I really am. I think one of the things I've learned in this first quarter is that I like working with real estate agents, and I like on the
mm,
sales side being able to
yeah,
buy it and then hand it off to a good agent. So my goal is really to continue to develop relationships with some. I've got one in the county that I've been spending most of the last couple of months, and now that I work with, that's really good, helping me on both the
That's awesome.
acquisition side and then on the sales side. And I'd like to kind of work my way into buying where I'm buying 70-80% of my properties where there's enough meat on the bone and that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's awesome. You know,
So I think that's where
if
I'm
you,
moving. So to answer your question, that's really kind of where I'm moving towards the second half of the year is buying properties in that kind of higher price range, $20,000 to
yeah.
$60,000, so I can do that.
You know, just kind of hearing where you are, and I love. It's funny because you describe yourself as someone who's impatient, but it's really funny because I feel like you're taking this very patiently too, and you're well paced. And I think maybe it's because you also have you know, something else that, you know, your own work, and you know, you have other things to kind of keep you busy. Um, and a lot of people sometimes feel like the pressure to need to like do this at a giant scale, and you know, although that is one of our goals, is to help land investors scale, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it full time or do it at a large scale. That simply means how can we minimize the amount of time you spend and still have a good impact. But is it your goal to do this full time, or you're just going to take it as it comes, or is it, you know, always going to be just something as a fun sort of almost a passion hustle, if I may.
Yeah. Yeah, my passion side hustle. Yeah, and that's what it
Yeah,
is right now. I mean, I'm
yeah,
kind of again taking this year and uh, uh, doing the proof of concept. But yeah, I think
yeah,
long term, I'm a few years off yet from retirement, but I could see myself doing this in retirement a few years down the road. So
yeah, yeah.
that is certainly in the back of my mind.
Awesome. Awesome. I know you mentioned earlier about working with real estate agents. I'm going to poke you about that quickly right after this. But if you guys are also interested in learning about working or finding real estate agents, Jaron, also from RE Tipster, he's a co-host with Seth, has put together a great webinar. If you wanted to check that out, it's going to be under resources and under classroom. Now we're doing a big site redesign right now. It might be in a different section, but we'll put it in the show notes. It is how to find and work with land specialized real estate agents. But let me ask you this. So are you currently only offloading properties with real estate agents at this point in time?
No, I've got a mix of both. I would
Okay.
say probably out of those 12 properties that we talked about, 4 or 5 of them would be with a single real estate agent that I have right now that I'm working with.
Right.
Then the other, I guess that's another goal in the second half of the year is to really kind of figure out the sales side of it a bit. I've got a few of those listed, and I need to
Mm,
really kind of get my selling website up
hmm.
through you guys and get those out there. But I've got a few of them on the market right now, and I've just got to figure out
Got
that
you.
sell side a bit.
Well, I love sort of asking these really simple questions, but what do you hate the most about land investing? You seem to just enjoy the process. There's got to be some parts of the business you don't like. I love sort of talking about the grimmer side of things. What kind of things do you not like about land investing?
I think that I guess if there was one thing I don't like, it would be the hate messages, and then sometimes I hear back even from the Pat Live people how they were abused by somebody,
Ugh,
and I just
yeah,
it's like I knew this would happen, right? I learned about it in my training, but it's amazing to me how upset some people get just because they've gotten a piece of mail from me offering them some money for their property. So I dislike that, but I quickly overcome that by seeing and enjoying the interactions I have with people who are really happy that I came along and offered them
yeah, yeah,
something for their property, and I'm taking
yeah,
something a burden off their plate, and they can move forward and do something different. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
so that's
I
probably
love
what I
that.
would say. I just you get to see that come out in people. I
Yeah,
guess that is one of the benefits of having Pat Live. My
yeah.
wife thought she was going to originally kind of answer my calls for me, and after she heard the first voice message come from from hate, she goes, I'm not answering these phone calls. No way. These people don't know our home address, do they?
It's probably like the most common thing. In fact, like I don't know if you know this, but inside of Pebble and we've got a functionality. You can check this out later, Mike. But you can actually blacklist people so you don't mail them twice. It's I know it's one of those things like, can we just not ever mail one people in the future? So we do have a blacklisting function that'll save you.
I need to figure that out because I do get the messages, right? Take me off your list.
Yeah.
And I just kind of delete those, and I'm hoping I don't mail them back. But
no, you can mark them now. So whenever you do your next mailing, nothing will ever go out to them. So you don't need to waste postage or be concerned with them. But
that's great
yes.
to know.
Mike, I really appreciate you coming on. Somebody who's getting started here, had no real estate experience at all, went through education with someone like Seth or taking that in, absorbed other podcasts, and learned. There's a lot of people in your position and they're afraid to take that step forward. And I think you're living proof that you can test it out and see if things work out. And if it does, you can continue to roll. You don't have to go full steam ahead. But Mike, it's great to hear your story and thank you. I'd love to bring you back on maybe in a year's time and catch up with you and see how things have changed, because land constantly changes. So would love to have you back on in the future. Other than that, Mike, thank you very much for coming on this show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. I would be remiss to say if I didn't say how important your early advice has been to me and how important Pebble has been in helping me kind of navigate these waters early on. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mike. Cheers. Before you stop this podcast or head to the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the REI Conversion Podcast. If you found this helpful, we'd greatly appreciate an awesome review and rating on whichever platform you're listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this in other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up of the REI Conversion Podcast or this specific episode that may help them on their investing journey. Once again, thanks very much for listening and catch you on our next episode.